Is transgender ideology compatible with reality-based institutions and the protection of the vulnerable? No. ClearMaps analysis. Transgender ideology in the dominant culture war affirmative form that captured Western progressive institutions scores 6 out of 50. That is near total capture, the same band as the broader DEI complex. This is not a score of private distress. It is a score of the lived system that declared subjective gender identity an innate, overriding, sacred fact, prioritized immediate affirmation and medicalization, treated ordinary sex realism as violence, and then punished anyone who measured the costs. The concrete results are already visible. Puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones were scaled to thousands of adolescents on remarkably weak evidence. CAS and multiple European systematic reviews found no good evidence they improve dysphoria or mental health, no evidence they reduce suicide, and clear risks to bone density, fertility, and sexual function. Referral numbers exploded, especially among adolescent girls with high rates of autism, anxiety, depression, and trauma. Historical desistance patterns and the strong overlap with same-sex attraction were sidelined. Male-bodied athletes retained performance advantages in female sports. Male-bodied prisoners, including sex offenders, were placed in women's prisons and shelters. Schools socially transitioned children without parental knowledge. Language itself was rewritten so that noticing biological sex became a moral crime. The ideology claims to protect the most vulnerable. In practice, it raises the cost of protecting them. That is the operating cost. Map 1, Minds, score 1 out of 10. The human mind was not designed for truth. It was shaped for survival in small groups where acceptance often mattered more than accuracy. Once a belief fuses with identity, the mind protects the model. Here, the fusion is near absolute. The claim that internal identity overrides biological sex and that questioning this is existential violence or erasure is treated as sacred. Updating is framed as annihilation of the person. There is no internal model of identity protective cognition applied to itself. Higher intelligence is recruited as a better rationalization engine. Queer theory, lived experience as trump card, linguistic redefinition of sex. Social transition and pronoun enforcement increase the fusion. The mind is treated almost entirely as protective survival code. Map 2. Incentives and coordination, score 2 out of 10. Systems produce what they reward. Affirmation, rapid medical pathways, clinic expansion, and public loyalty displays generate status, funding, and career advancement. Clinicians, researchers, and parents who insist on differential diagnosis, highlight weak evidence, or note the female adolescent surge and comorbidity rates lose platforms and positions. Decision makers inside the affirmative institutions have been largely insulated from the long-term harms. Feedback is slow and filtered. Short-term affirmation metrics and suicide prevention rhetoric dominate, while fertility loss, sexual dysfunction, and persistent mental illness fall on patients. European health authorities eventually forced clearer feedback through systematic reviews. The ideology itself never did. Map 3, Status and Capture, score 0 out of 10. This is the strongest failure mode. Correct pronouns, affirmation of self-ID, and ritual denunciation of TERFS function as purity and membership tests. The cost of dissent is extreme. Social death, professional destruction, moral branding, and in some environments, threats. Capture was rapid across universities, medical bodies, schools, corporations, and media. Ambitious actors advanced by aligning. There are no meaningful mechanisms that decouple status from the doctrine. Language itself was conscripted. A clear red flag for any high-cost system is the immediate raising of identity shields the moment costs are pointed at. That move collapses a contested claim about reality into a protected category and raises the social price of further inquiry. Map 4, Error Correction, score 1 out of 10. Error correction is actively punished, surfacing the CAS findings, the referral explosion, the sex ratio shift, the autism and trauma overlap, the desistance literature, or the simple fact that sex is binary and immutable in humans carries career and social risk. Major external reviews were attacked or reframed rather than integrated. Core claims, innate identity overriding sex, medicalization as essential life-saving care, disagreement as harm, show almost no internal revision in the activist and captured institutional core. Continuous high-effort defense against hate and erasure is required. Once identity is fused to the claim and status is fused to enforcement, the system cannot easily correct. It becomes a runaway train. Map 5, scale, score 2 out of 10. A rare condition became a youth social contagion vector, then an institutional capture project, then a demand that society rewrite language, law, sport, prisons, and single-sex spaces. Distance between decision and consequence grew. Quiet failure accumulated for years. Change, where it has occurred, has mostly been forced by external systematic reviews and political pushback, not by the ideology noticing its own costs. At scale, it does not stay private. It consumes the host society's ability to protect women, children, same-sex attracted people, and the very distressed adolescents it claims to center. Further thoughts. The 5 maps describe a single machine. Identity protective minds create incentives to defend maximal claims. Those claims become status tests. The tests raise the price of noticing reality. At scale, the pattern hardens and spreads. The ideology presents itself as the sole defense of the vulnerable against existential erasure. In practice, it medicalizes distressed youth on weak evidence, sidelines the autism and trauma that often drive the distress, risks converting gender non-conforming gay and lesbian teenagers, places male-bodied people in female spaces, and treats the act of measurement itself as violence. The adolescents, especially the post-2015 surge of teenage girls, pay the highest price when the evidence turns out thin. This is not a conspiracy of uniquely evil people. It is the measurable output of extreme identity fusion, status protection of claims that collide with material reality, and error correction made socially toxic. Once those features lock in, the system runs on its own. Under existential framing, it escalates. It will keep running until the external costs finally exceed the internal rewards of staying wrong. That is the operating cost of the map. Score 6 out of 50. The pattern is no longer mysterious once you stop treating the identity shields as arguments and start treating them as data. Reality does not negotiate.